The Floor Academy podcast is sponsored by Trelama, the trade labor marketplace, where businesses can find skilled trade labor, such as flooring installers, and where flooring installers and other skilled tradespeople can find permanent or project work. You can set up your profile at trelama.com, TRALAMA.com, or download the app from the Apple App Store or Google Play. And remember, Trelama is always free for skilled tradespeople. In-floor heating has never been easier. The new 2020 NWFA guidelines provide electric in-floor heating options that do not require the system to be embedded in cement. The Warm Step system allows for safe installation for glue-down, floating, and nailed-down installation directly over an in-floor heating system. What does that mean for the wood flooring dealer or installer? It means you can now offer your customers a simpler, faster, more cost-effective option for safely installing electric in-floor radiant heat systems with a wood floor. Thermosoft's Warm Step is tested and approved by many flooring adhesive and fastener manufacturers. Visit warmstep.com now to learn how you can heat up your business with the best in-floor heating system for wood floors. Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hedin, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Phoenix, Arizona. We're here to talk with flooring professionals from all across the country about the issues that matter to you. I want to encourage you to learn while you earn. This week's guest is Sergey Shlyapintokh. Sergey is the Director of Business Development at Thermosoft, a manufacturer of radiant heat systems. We discuss how radiant heat isn't something to be afraid of, how it can add great value to your bottom line, and why building relationships outside of your direct industry can be beneficial. Keep listening. Sergey Shlyapintokh, are you on the line?
I am. How are you, Kyle?
I'm good. Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. This'll be a fun one because this is something that I'm not familiar with, but I can see the benefits of it. I know that there's definitely plenty of contractors that need to learn more about it, and there's no reason to be afraid of it. So I think we're going to have a really informative episode.
I'm looking to be a good resource here.
Awesome. All right. So who are you? What do you do? How'd you even get into doing it? Like, why are you in the flooring world? How'd you get there? What do you do? Where are you going? All that fun stuff.
So, again, I'm Sergey Shlypintokh. I work for Thermosoft International, and we are an electric radiant floor heating company that doesn't just do electric radiant floor heating. We do heating in general. Now, I started with Thermosoft about 15 years ago, and I've had pretty much every single role that you can imagine in the company, including standing on the production line, getting some production stuff done, doing some R&D, and participating in all of our testing that we have to do for regulatory compliance with UL. And biggest thing that we did recently was participate on the National Wood Flooring Association's Radiant Heat Task Force.
Okay.
So the goal of what I'm doing here, and my role is Director of Business Development, I kind of fell into this role, especially with the wood flooring industry, because we needed to really focus on building that wood flooring business with what we found from our activity on the task force, that the wood flooring side of the world has this knee-jerk reaction that they do not like electric radiant heat. And that right there is an understandable reaction based on the systems that we've seen. However, it's not appropriate with the technologies that have now come out there.
Okay.
So, and to answer the question of where we're going, our goal is we're going to teach everybody that there's a lot of things out there technology-wise that are changing. not only in the radiant heat space, but in the process space that we've done to allow everybody to succeed with every project that they touch.
Okay.
Some of the things that I've learned in the wood flooring space is that it's not always the best job you do is not always the one that you do well. It's the one that you don't take, because sometimes
Yes.
there's just too many obstacles.
That's it. Sometimes the best job is the one you don't take because it's just gonna hurt the pocketbook. So it's best to walk away. So tell me about being on the committee for the new NWFA guidelines. Okay, so the old guidelines were from like 2004 or something, if I remember correctly. They were pretty old and a little outdated based on a lot of changes. So with this new 2020 release of them, how big was the radiant heat section before, and how big is it now?
So the previous version of the guideline, I think the radiant heat section was actually somewhere from the 1990s. Because at that point in time, it spoke to the installation method being approved of only floating floors over a system that's only embedded in a cement layer. The entire radiant heat guide portion of the NWFA guidelines was a page long of the same sentence or the same paragraph repeated 6 times, or the same 5 steps repeated 6 times. It was the Appendix H.
Okay.
The new guideline that came out of the work with the task force, and we had a lot of great people on task force, it's over 20 pages. It's almost 20 pages long. And if you look at everything, the changes are unbelievable compared to the amount of detail and the amount of guidance that is now provided in the new radiant heat guide, to where there's 10 different systems in both the in the application of a radiant heat from the water side, the hydronic side, and there's 10 or 11, however you want to slice it, different electric systems that are acknowledged by the NWFA.
Okay. Who is participating on the task force with you?
Well, Brett Miller, there were a number of radiant heat manufacturers that are on the task force from both the hydronic and the electric side.
Okay.
As well as some very prominent names from the wood flooring space, like Hallmark, Mannington, and a couple of other ones. There is a full credit available in the back of the new guideline for everybody that's there, so I'm not going to start dropping all names there.
Okay. So, I mean, you had some of the manufacturers were involved. You had some NWFA representation. You had some manufacturer, like wood floor manufacturer representation. I'm assuming there was a couple of installers on there as well.
Not only installers, but there were installers, there were inspectors, and there were adhesive and nailing manufacturers, as far as I remember.
Okay.
We brought everybody in to the mix that we could, particularly to make sure that systems could be, the projects that get involved with a radiant heat system, they really are done successfully. There's a lot of things that go around in the radiant heat space, because a lot of the high-end projects that you get into, and just talking just some general numbers, the minute you mention radiant heat, you're in the $10 to $15 range just to start thinking about it per square foot of a project. And I'm not talking flooring, I'm not talking anything else. You know, if you're doing it in a hydronic method, you've got a pipe, then you've got the boiler system, then you've got the proper layout, the engineering costs to get that factored in correctly, the boilers, the managing of it, depending on whether you want it to be an open or a closed system. And I can keep going into the technical details, because a lot of people think that it's just a simple pipe, boiler, pump, and everything, and it's all done. Well, it really is that if you boil it down to the nuts and bolts, but when you talk about plumbing, and I'll just use a funny thing, when you pay a plumber to bang on your pipes, you don't pay him to just bang on the pipes, you pay him to know where to bang.
Yes.
And that's the value add that comes in with that. Now, electric systems sound like they're a lot simpler, but on the flip side of that, there are a lot of details that come with electric systems that is the reason why there's 10 of them acknowledged by the NWFA. And those details involve what's your power source, what kind of a subfloor are you going over, what's going to be your installation process, how can you install it, how can you install the floor over the top of it, what matches it together, and so on. And the fact that it went from just one type of system that was embedded in the cement beforehand to now having a total of 20 choices that are acknowledged by the guideline is just proof to itself that there's enough demand in the industry that people want to do heat, because there's so many of us that are out there to do that. And Thermosoft's been in business since 1996, and the way that we've been, one of our primary businesses that's consumer-facing is the radiant heat side. We've got 4 different variations of a system that we can sell that can go right under tile, an additional 2 that can go under cement slab, an additional 3 that can be installed with a floating laminate vinyl wood type flooring. And the reason we have all those varieties of systems, and there's so many of them out there, is because there are so many ways to make the installation correct, but there's a lot more ways to make it incorrect. And the guideline, the task force, everybody there wanted to come together and give the flooring installer the best chance at success, because what ended up happening a lot of times is the flooring installer comes into a job site and somebody's already spread a whole bunch of self-leveling cement, and they say, okay, nail your wood floor to that, there's an electric system under there.
Yeah.
Or there's a hydronic system under there. Now, you can't see anything under that slab, and you're the one that's supposed to not drive a fastener or a cleat through that.
Correct.
Or you're expected to install a glue down floor because you said, I'm not nailing through this. But you can't increase your price to account for that because there's a lot more labor involved in that, not to mention a lot more costs with adhesive.
Yeah. There's, I mean, look, I live in Phoenix. Like most people don't want heated slabs because it gets way too hot during the summer. So they love their tile and they love it feeling cold. But I spent 12 years in Chicago. So I get not wanting to wake up and touching really cold tile in the middle of the winter to go to the bathroom at 2 a.m. because it's uncomfortable and unpleasant. And if I could have nice warm floors, that would be great.
You're talking my language. We're in Chicago.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I get it. And I've been there, done that. That's why I moved back to Phoenix. I don't need to deal with any of that. So I get it. But if people were looking, and if the guidelines just got updated and they were like 20, 25 years old, and it doesn't look like you can be successful with the technology that's available because the guidelines don't go over it, I'm not going to take that risk. So I think you just open the door by being able to develop this to a whole lot of people to have a whole lot more options to be a whole lot more profitable. Because if I can add in a product line that I can successfully install and I can get it for a decent price and put some markup on it, then we're golden. I just need to know how to be successful. And so if your company's there and the other companies are there backing us up saying, hey, look, we approve these methods, this is what's going to work, then there's no reason to be afraid of it anymore. There's all the more reason to go and get educated on it.
Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself. One of the things that was part of the reason that there was such a knee-jerk reaction was the risk aversion of the wood flooring manufacturer. Okay. And not only the manufacturer, but also the distributor. When you combine the fact that you put together a radiant heat system and you install that system and you install that flooring on top of that system and that flooring has a claim, all of a sudden that flooring manufacturer doesn't know what exactly caused that particular issue. Mm-hmm. And the customer doesn't really care about the fact that the way that they were using the system is what caused the failure. They don't care that maybe the radiant heat specifier wasn't the right kind of didn't space everything properly, because he was told this was going to be a tile hallway, and all of a sudden there was wood that was put over there, and there was too much heat for the wood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the trick with any type of a heating installation, number one, is communication. The customer needs to be educated. The homeowner needs to be educated if it's not the customer, if they're not the one and the same. If it's a builder, there need to be proper cautions that are left for the future homeowner, whoever buys it. And as you're putting it together, you really should have all of the trades on the same page, because you might have an electric system, and we've got a job right now that's in Bozeman, Montana, that kind of ran into this. The electric heating system was specified for the electrical contractor. However, they chose a heating system that the flooring contractor is better suited to install, and the electrical contractor said, you know what, I'll just take my little part of making the connections, and I'll leave the job of putting in the flooring system into the flooring contractor, because the system that they ended up choosing didn't require the extra steps and the extra time that it traditionally would.
Mm-hmm.
And where that went was the project ended up being turned around with the flooring installer actually making probably about 3 times more than what he would have made in terms of gross profit, because he took on that flooring system installation, and that's after paying out the electrician.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that sounds great, especially if the job takes me about the same amount of time, or maybe, I add a day or two. But if I can make that much more, then I need to be informed about this. Is Thermosoft, or do you know of any of your competitors? Is anybody putting on certification classes or some kind of education class? Like I can go to Wagner's website and I can take a class about their moisture meters, and I can go to an NWFA sanded finish class or installation class. I can go to an American Sanders or Lagler class. Do you guys have anything like that to really help start making this push to get the installers educated on how these products are working?
I can't speak for my competitors, because what they do can change from yesterday to today, like flipping a coin.
Mm-hmm.
However, for Thermosoft's side of things, we've got a couple of things going on right now. We've already done 5 over the course of the last 2 years, and they're all pre-recorded. And you know what? I'll forward you the links to them, so maybe you can post them with this episode on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
So we've done 5 already webinars for the NWFA that we did with them, and they are the ones that actually looked it over and made sure that it was technically correct for the wood portion of it.
Okay.
We've got another one coming up on October 14th, actually, as an NWFA webinar, speaking specifically about what we're hoping to really change the stigma in the space right now of installing a direct contact electric floor heating system with a nail down or a glue down method with a wood floor. That's the topic of the next one that we're doing on 14th with the NWFA. And this is the direct contact is what's the big stigma is. It's a lot of times the electrical systems come in a format of a mat.
Mm-hmm.
And that mat gets put down right under the floor covering, and then you put your floor right on top of that, whether it be a vinyl, whether it be a wood, whether it be a laminate, and whatever you're putting down directly on top of it. When you start calling companies for, hey, what do you allow installation over this, or what's the process on this? And they say, no, any electric heating mat needs to be embedded in a half inch of mortar or an inch of mortar, or whatever minimum they say that they need to be put in there. Well, that sounds great and all, but if you've got a system that's going into a non-stick construction in a house, a wooden frame house, can the house handle that additional weight to begin with?
Mm-hmm.
And do you have the room for that additional floor height?
Yeah.
What are your transitions going to look like? So that's the whole challenge there. And there's a lot of education pieces out there. Plus, we'll be putting out educational seminars, whether it be, for example, Intermountain has a new. There's going to be a set of webinars that Intermountain wood products we're going to be doing to announce the Hallmark Radiant Heat Guide. We partnered with Hallmark as Thermosoft to help educate their retailers on the changes that the Hallmark Radiant Heat Guide has done specifically for electric flooring, and that's available at Hallmark's website as well. So some wood flooring manufacturers have gone out and really accepted the changes that the NWFA has done, and published new publications, new guidelines, new installation instructions for their systems that match the flooring.
Well, that's promising. I mean, look, you want to see the industry you want to see the industry change and evolve and grow and accept new technology as it comes along, right? Like if we're going to get hung up and we're not going to stay educated, then we're only stifling ourselves and we're going to kill ourselves off. So it's good to hear that people are jumping on the bandwagon and adapting to things coming out. I get that you're saying the mats can go right down and you can like nail over them. How does that even work? Like is a nail not going to penetrate these mats and like nick a wire or sever a wire, or like how can you sit there and be like, hey, I can just, you tell me that I can nail wood down right over a mat?
So, and I'm trying to keep this a little generic because it's, there's systems out there that, heck, there might be systems out there that I don't even know about. But the nailing process, the nail down installation of a system, before I answer that question, I'm just going to say that there really are like generally three types of systems that you can classify the 10 that the NWFA acknowledged. You can break them down into three types of systems.
Okay.
They're either systems that are embedded in a layer of cement. There's no nailing to that.
Correct.
They're systems that are adhered to the underside of the subfloor. You can nail to the subfloor on that. However, if your fastener isn't just right, or if the system's already in place and your fastener is a little too violent, you can blow out that subfloor and damage that heating system from the underside the same way.
Yep.
And there's systems that are allowed to be in direct contact with the wood flooring, which is what the NWFA has acknowledged. Those are basically the three main categories of what the system can be classified. And one system may fall into multiple categories. That's what's the confusing thing about the electric systems, is one system might actually go across two or all three of these types of categories. However, speaking about one of our systems, and I'm trying to leave brand names out of it. I'm gonna leave it out unless you tell me it's okay to say it.
No, you're good. I mean, it's all right. It's your thing. You do your thing.
All right. So I can speak specifically about WarmStep because it's what we've done, and this is something that we've tried to do while we were as part of the NWFA task force. The WarmStep system that we are now bringing to the distributor and hopefully to retail locations to be added to your lineup. First thing that we did is we actually partnered with PowerNail, and we had PowerNail, number one, go through and make sure that you can keep a proper nailing schedule according to the NWFA guidelines over any installation type of our system. So once we knew that we could maintain a proper nailing schedule, we then put together a test floor and asked PowerNail, all right, put this together, and is there any vertical deflection? Is the system thin enough to allow for nailing at a proper nailing schedule without having any vertical deflection that will create problems in the future? And once we knew that we had that test passed, we then went about making the system easier to see. And the way that WarmStep looks is it's a fabric mesh. It's a fabric mat. It's a fabric kind of material with a wire that is extremely thin. I'm talking less than a 16th, spaced at 3 inches on center.
Okay.
And the instructions say to put it down perpendicular to the direction of your floor. So you lay out these mats in a perpendicular fashion to your flooring direction. And now you can see a guide every 3 inches and put your fastener in between the two lines.
Ah, okay. So you can see it. So that's why it works, is that you can see where you're going, and that's why board width doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about you can pretty much control where you're going, and you should be able to line up a nail where you want it.
Well, to be more precise, you should be able to avoid a 1/16th line, or heck, make it a half an inch, so a little bit on each side of the line. You should be able to avoid a half an inch at 3-inch on centers.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the more accurate description of that. The one thing that I will say is, when you've got those guidelines, we've had a lot of newer installers that don't quite know how to keep a proper nailing schedule by feel just yet.
Okay.
They've put down a system over warm step, and because the guides are every 3 inches, and most of the nailing schedules tend to fall somewhere between 4 and 8, 4 and 6. They can keep an even 6-inch schedule like nobody's business, because one here, skip one here, skip one, nail here, skip one, and just run it the entire time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know I did like 2 nail down installs very, very early on, and it took a lot of thought at first to like, okay, move it over this much, move it over this much, move it over this much. And so to have a guide and not have to think, that takes one of the steps out. That's kind of nice. Well, speaking of the warm step, so that'll work with hardwood floors, and it'll go right underneath. But it also works with floating floor systems, does it not?
It does.
And it doesn't matter. I can put the laminate, the vinyl, just right over it. It doesn't matter that there's an attached pad. It's good to go.
At least by the testing that was done by Metro Floors, they're not endorsing anything, but they approve it. We've got a letter of from them that says it's suitable for use with their vinyl floors. Then goes with Hallmarks, and goes with Madewell. Those are just some of the manufacturers that we've gone to test it with their application.
Okay.
And some of the things to consider with this is the vinyl world has really changed a lot with the floor covering. The vertical deflection is something a lot of people don't really think about with vinyl, because, hey, if there's vertical deflection, it's a floating floor anyway. Well, what about in what about in an environment where you've got regular, constant rolling point loads like a wheelchair?
Yeah.
Your on-ramping, your off-ramping is problematic. And those locks, where they might be strong, but they're also brittle. And do you want to be really out there constantly replacing those? So some of the things to consider is radiant heat works with pretty much every type of flooring that's out there. But with the amount of varieties of vinyl that are out there, I will say that warm step is compatible with most of them out there.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they're qualified as a rigid, and recommended be an SPC core rigid type flooring.
Okay.
Or be something that's been tested with it. And we're constantly reaching out. This is something that we would actually prefer to do in partnership with retailers, in partnership with installers, is if you're 6 months out from a project, get us in touch with your retailer, get us in touch with your local rep. We'll do everything we can to send out a sample of the warm step system to the manufacturer and say, hey, we've got this project, especially on a big commercial project. We've got this project. They want radiant heat. They need this spec to be met. This is what they're thinking of going under it. We have looked at the floor. The floor is approved to go above the system. Now, is the system approved to go below the floor, and can we make sure that the two things match? This is going back to that point of communication that I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, that if we can get everybody on board, we all learn together.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to develop here is a network of professionals that and in reality, we're looking to get the flooring professional to take control back from things that they normally wouldn't be able to control, because they'd be taken away from them to be managed by a heating installer or an electrician who's got no idea of what damage that floor is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like it or not, there's really only two trades out there that have most of any dwelling or any facility visible, and they get the least amount of credit. That's the flooring professional and the painter. Now, the painter's a little bit of a touch-up. The flooring professional, that particular individual takes on a lot of risk for doing a job, and it's visible everywhere.
Yep.
You don't really. There's not really an associate. Well, there probably is an association for it, but there's really. I haven't heard of anybody having a paint inspector come in to inspect the paint. There's a whole business focused around flooring inspections to make sure that they were done correctly.
Yep.
And we need to take pride in our trade, and we need to start being able to control as much of the interaction or as much of the variables around it as possible. So if there is a radiant heat system that's going in, there needs to be a lot of education around it that we learn, that we work together to actually learn and collect that information as well of, hey, this species works over it, this species doesn't. This species is good in this climate, while this one should be avoided at all costs.
You're just talking crazy stuff now. Come on. We're going to openly communicate with multiple manufacturers and vendors and openly discuss things to come up with the best outcome. You're crazy. That won't work.
Probably, but I can live in my own little utopia.
No, I love it. I'm being sarcastic.
But,
I'm sorry.
But no, I know. But that's exactly what the NWFA does. I mean, that's part of what we got out of from working with the NWFA.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to talk up the NWFA because, and I guess this might actually make us different than anybody else in the radiant heat industry from a system perspective or from a manufacturer perspective. It was very interesting to participate on that panel, on that radiant heat panel, because it was very polarizing. There was a group of participants that, regardless of how much the wood flooring industries would throw roadblocks in their path, they would try to find a way to barrel through the roadblocks, or I guess barrel through any objections that they would say would be a better way of putting it.
Okay.
And then there's another group of heating professionals that were sitting there and, okay, so that's an objection, that's an objection, that's an objection, that's an objection. How do we tailor our system to work around the objections rather than try to force through the objection or force the objection to be changed or change their methodology of installation with our system?
Mm-hmm.
And really, I mean, I know which side we fell on. Part of the reason why we have Warm Step that was tailored for the wood flooring industry. And there's other systems that are out there on the hydronic side that are loved by the flooring industry because they do generally create the most even type of heat that's out there. And there are other systems that will create really interesting things like a heating element that is allowed to be punctured with a metal fastener. And when that fastener goes through it, and you've got that installation done, everything looks great and everything's working fine until 3 months, 4 months into the heating season, your floor looks like it has the measles. And what we found was that when that heating element was punctured by that fastener acted as a heat sink and then caramelized the sugars on that blind nail spot, and you've got little brown pinpoints under your finish at every spot where you have a fastener.
Jeez.
So, those kind of things. It's there's a lot of different methods that are out there that will result in a successful installation 95% of the time. Heck, it can even be 99% of the time. And we all know them. We've done, everybody that's installed a floor has done something like that one way or another. But that 1% could be devastating to a business.
Yes.
And is that 1% really worth it? And that's,
yeah. Well, I mean, with proper education, right? Like if you're running the business properly and you have the proper education and you're being profitable, then you should have the bank account to back an accident like that. And that accident should have a less chance of happening. It's not that people don't make mistakes. I get that, but
chances are, if you're running your business in that method, you're doing your installations that 1% is avoided without you having to even risk it.
Correct.
Because you're using the processes, you're using the tools, you're using the technologies that are out there now to make sure that it's done correctly. And one of the things that, and I guess this is a big one that we haven't mentioned yet. There's some technologies that when we reach out to our customers, and again, we've been selling heating direct to the end user, consumer, contractor, developer, builder, whoever wanted it, because retail stores were so risk averse to it. We've been in business for 20 some years because of that, or in spite of that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some new technologies that have now become possible that allow you to make your floor smart. And I'd love for this to be a live session because I've live, I mean, in front of a live studio audience, because I've done a couple of sessions where I'm in a room with 30 or 40 installers or flooring professionals, and I ask this question, by show of hands, how many people would love to know or be able to show their homeowner when their floor is getting a little too much moisture content or too little moisture content, and tell them to either humidify or dehumidify the air before there's ever a chance of the claim happening? Every hand in the room goes up.
Well, yeah, because nobody takes proper care of their floor to begin with. If the homeowner if you can take one less thing away from the homeowner to have to do that they're probably not going to do, that's a win.
True, but there's no way that you can take away the maintenance of the environment in that space away from the homeowner.
But that's what I'm saying. But if there's some automatic way to do that, then that's what they need, because they generally won't care that the house needs to stay 60 to 80 and 35 to 55% relative humidity or whatever the product specs happen to be.
So what we've been using with most of our wood flooring installations is a data logger. And we strongly recommend for any wood floor installation a data logger that's built into the floor. And there's a number. The one that we've been using is made by Fitbox. And the best way for me to describe it is take a quarter-inch thick stack of business cards,
okay,
router out a cavity in one of the boards, and it comes with double-sided sticky tape. Put it in there, save the number, make a diagram to save the location of where that number is installed, and go on with your installation. Now, that is all it takes to install that data logger. Now, what that data logger does, at least in our experience, is 3 times a day over a course of 24 hours, it takes a reading, or it takes it and saves it.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it has an app that connects to the phone via Bluetooth that the homeowner can open it up once a week, once every 2 weeks. Heck, they can do it every single day, and it makes their floor smart. And it basically tells them your floor is at this temperature or has been at this temperature. This is the moisture content above and below right now here. Here's a chart of where it's been through the seasons. And when you have a situation, this type of a device, I hate to say it, but it keeps literally everybody in the game honest. Because if the homeowner set the floor heating system at a temperature higher than the manufacturer recommends, well, that's a fact that needs to be taken into consideration during a claim.
Yes.
If the homeowner lives on Lake Michigan, like I'm going to say here, in Chicago, lives right by the lake and keeps their windows open the entire time, it's a lovely breeze. We have more days where it's 100% humidity and not raining well, there's other places, it's not Florida, but
yes.
But there's definitely, because of our winters, the floors can't tolerate that. And a solid wood floor will definitely expand, contract, move around, and shimmy on you. And by the time you're done with that, if there's a claim for that, prove it afterwards. Prove that there was higher than needed humidity in the fall, and then in the winter it went so low that you've got quarter-sized gapping.
Mm-hmm. No, it's hard to keep people honest. I mean, you got to play games with them just to get them to say they mopped the floor when you're doing, inspectors will have to go in, and you can't ask them, do you mop the floor? You're supposed to ask, what kind of mop do you use?
Exactly.
So correct, you're taking the guesswork out of it. There's already
exactly,
and there's the data. They can't fudge it. They can't get into it and adjust it. It is what it is.
And to start that, because there's a big difference between the entire floor needs to be replaced because it's defective, or it needs to be sanded and finished because the homeowner didn't maintain the finish correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big care that definitely comes in with the use of a data logger, and that's something that, in a sense, protects your profits. And at the same time, it keeps the rest of the industry honest as well, because let's say the homeowner did maintain everything properly. Well, who else is responsible for that floor not failing? There is the contractor, there's the installation, and the NWFA has an amazing pre-installation checklist that goes over pretty much everything. I don't know if you've used that one in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's stressed for every installer, and if you're not an NWFA member, at the very least, they give this thing away for free on their website. Go to their website and download the pre-installation checklist. Go through it. Even if you're not an NWFA member, this is something that every competent flooring installer should go through and go over before doing an installation.
I agree. It makes you dot your I's and cross your T's, and it gives you stick it in the file with the customer's invoice, and you have all your information. So if anything ever arises, it's there. And I'm not saying I do it. I know it's there. I know the tool exists. I've looked at it before. I've done some of the stuff on it. I try and do my best. I screw up sometimes, but if you make it a part of your routine, you're going to end up in a lot better position, because if you ever have an inspection and you can't show numbers of where stuff was at when it happened, you're automatically in the wrong because you can't prove a darn thing.
In some cases, the customer is right until they're proven wrong.
Yeah.
That's just how it falls. If it ever gets to the point of where it's at lawyers, then lawyers are there to make money for themselves. I hate to say it, but that's what they're doing. And if the customer, whoever's got the more expensive lawyer, tends to win.
Yeah, I don't know many contractors that can compete with manufacturers on the lawyer level. So we'll just, we'll throw that one out there.
But with that being said, like I said, keeping a data logger in place, if you've got all your ducks in a row,
mm-hmm.
and the homeowner has proof that they've maintained the proper conditions that are needed, well, then that liability gets taken off of I can't say liability. The best way to handle any claim, and we've been fortunate enough to not have too many claims in the wood flooring space, because of the fact that we use these technologies that are available to us.
Okay.
Is that you establish the facts first, and then you come back and you cry about the feelings later. That is actually a line that I got from somebody in the wood flooring industry, a good mentor of mine as well, somebody I met on the Radiant Heat Task Force. And the one thing that I've realized with any type of industry that you're working in, especially in the wood floor industry, know what you know and be open to something you don't know. So when with us being part of the heating task force, or us doing a lot of the heat, I'm not going to tell a cement guy how to mix his cement. I'm not going to tell a wood guy how to cut his wood. You guys know wood, or the wood flooring manufacturer knows wood a lot better than me every day of the week. You know, I've been told I'm an overachiever, but there's only so much bandwidth that I have in a day. I love to learn everything new, but I don't have the experience nor the time to get the experience that's needed to be hands-on with wood manufacturing to that extent. And in addition to that, do the vinyl.
Yeah.
In addition to that, do the ceramic. In addition to that, do the porcelain, do the natural stones. Every natural stone has its own way of behaving depending on what you got out there. So the people that are making the stuff know better, but they can be stubborn too. So they know their material, but they should be open to test something new, or at the very least, give you a rider to cover their portions should this be something that is defective. And we found a lot of very, very cooperative manufacturers that have basically said, okay, so here's a 500 square foot job going over your heat that we don't know. We will cover the wood only. We'll replace the wood should the wood fail, as long as the data logger is in there, as long as we know what's there, because in the grand scheme of things, for them to set up a 500 square foot test space in a real life environment to know if this will work is going to cost a lot more than 500 square foot of flooring. Because you've got the overhead for every single staff member and everybody that's needed to monitor all of that. And we cooperate with the homeowner and say, okay, so your job is warrantied. This is who takes care of the warranties for your particular job. These are the parts of the warranties that will be covered. And because you're going to something that's outside of what we would normally do because it's something that we don't know, what we'll do is you're responsible for the labor. This person's responsible for this component. This company is responsible for the demo. Everybody will share the cost of the reinstallation. Each respective company will provide their respective replacement materials. Mm-hmm. And it either becomes a very good long-term, basically no news is good news type of situation, that there's no problems and we can cover that from that point on. And you really realize in one season whether it behaves the way that it's supposed to or it doesn't, then you can come back one season later and pull the data readings and take pictures after a season, or at least the adverse season.
Yes.
And leave it at B, or it turns out to be a fairly inexpensive lesson in the grand scheme of things, because everybody covers their part.
Well, and that just goes back to the communication aspect. You
Exactly.
can make things happen so much easier when you work with the professional in that field. Look, I don't know. I mean, could I figure out how to do my books? Yes. Do I understand what's going on when my bookkeeper does them? Yes. Do I want to do them? No. I want to pay the professional to handle them. It's just easier. So if I get the radiant heat people to do the heat, and I get the wood manufacturer to do their part, and I get the installer to do their part, and I get the electrician to do his part, and we all communicate, we work it out, I'm much more likely to have a successful end product than trying to figure it all out on my own and just make it happen. So, it makes perfect sense. And you're not doing it on an installer level. You're doing it on the manufacturing level. Well, you're doing it on an installer level too, because you're getting out in the field and working with people. I get that. But from the manufacturing side, you're getting the right people involved to make sure that you can offer a product that will be successful at the end of the day. And that's what matters.
Exactly. Though I do want to correct one thing that you just said. Depending on the heating system that you're putting in, you might be, as a flooring installer, might be the installer of that heating system. Mm-hmm. But you want to pair the correct system with the correct installation. The other thing that I want to bring out there is some more food for thought for the people out there, for the professionals out there, is how effective a properly paired system could really be. We've done a couple of studies, or a couple of case studies, where we've paired an incorrect system for the job site, something similar to what was traditionally done with like a layer of thin set. So you'd So you take one of our systems, you put down a system down on the floor, you cover it up with a self-leveling cement, and then you come back and you glue the wood floor to that.
Okay.
Well, that type of installation is absolutely correct because you're using a proper underlayment, so it's not too much moisture. You're using one that dries very quickly, and some of those can cost upwards of $50 a bag. And that system needs to have that minimum 3/8 in this particular case of that covering over the heating system, so that floor needed to be leveled to it. The all-in installation cost with a system like that ended up being upwards of $20 a square foot. The heating system itself cost in the $4 to $5 per square foot range as a free cable. The flip side of that, a properly matched system to that installation method, where you didn't need that additional layer of mortar, and you could just put down a thicker version of a floor, a thicker wood floor that will cover that thickness, and nail that down with warm step. That installation ended up costing $14 a square foot heating system all in, with the heating system being the bulk of it. So just because the heating system is cheaper doesn't make it cheaper to install.
Yes. You got to look at the
on
whole
top of
picture.
that, exactly. On top of that, the self-leveling system, by the time the floor was at the proper moisture level to actually bring the floor on site to acclimate, it took 3 days for everything to dry, and then the floor needed another 3 days to properly acclimate to the right conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing for those 6 days while all of that is settling? Because you can't necessarily start a project and be doing something else somewhere else unless it's small little things. You can't do good big projects. You can't commit to something while you've got something demolition halfway, especially if it's a room in a place where right now everybody's living in that space, and they're being nice enough to let you come in and do that in a room off to the side because they're sick of looking at it during COVID.
Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds like there's options that can be a little more effective, keep the project rolling along, and moving smoothly instead of having to, okay, well, I'm going to be over here and we're going to do this, and then your project's going to sit for 3 weeks until I can get back because I have to go do all these things, and you're in and out and bouncing back and forth, and that's just not convenient to people and doesn't sound good. Where am I? Like I said, being in Phoenix, like I don't really deal with it. Where are the applications? Besides, am I doing whole homes? Am I doing just above garages and or just bathrooms? Like, what's kind of the application here?
The answer is yes.
Okay. I'm putting it in my ceiling then. Okay.
We've been doing this for a long time, and we see all kinds of customers and all kinds of projects out there. Anything that's done in a northern climate above a garage, out of those types of jobs, 8 out of 10 people that talk to us that want a heating system above a garage end up getting a heating system above a garage, regardless of the floor covering that they end up putting in.
Okay.
And we've seen many projects of where people have gone back and said, you know what, I can't get a floor that I like here. Do you guys know a flooring manufacturer that'll approve your system under their floor? Because I'm putting a heating system above this garage no matter what. So one thing I will say that if your electricity is cheap, an electrical system is the only system that really uses a truly renewable energy source to generate heat right where it needs to be. And what benefits you have by using an electrical system is the fact that you can zone everything. Traditionally, we can keep a 200 or 400 square foot space on one thermostat, depending on the voltage that you're using.
Okay.
And that means that you can put the heat right where you need it. And ask most of your homeowners, you've got 5 rooms, 6 rooms in your house. How many of them do you really use?
Mm-hmm.
Do you really use your den that often? Do you really use your living room that often, unless you have little kids? Empty nesters use a bedroom, a kitchen, and maybe a study.
Yeah.
And if they're doing any kind of a remodel, heated floors, even if you don't use them, drive the resale prices up immensely, because it's a technology, it's something, it's building it for the future, and it kind of makes people think twice, unlike when you're looking at carpet. One of the worst pieces of advice I ever got from my realtor before we were getting rid of our house, or before we were selling our house, was that I needed to redo all the carpets everywhere. The new homeowner comes in and is like, you paid $3,000 for these carpets. If you would have given me $1,500 off, you and I would have been in a much better place, rather than these other things that needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And we both would have walked away with it. I'm like, now you tell me?
Yeah.
At the same time, we see a lot of realtors here that say, you tell people that they've got a heated floor here, and people aren't looking for a credit even for scratched up floors. Even for floors that look a little bit more worn than would be the taste, because you can refinish a lot of the real wood floors. You can refinish them.
Yes.
You can't refinish vinyl. You can't refinish, if it's a floating floor, you can pull off the floating vinyl very easily, and you can leave it by saying that, yes, this is a floating floor, but it's got a radiant heat system built into it below. So with that radiant heat system, you can put your own type of vinyl over the top of it, but we're not giving you a single credit for these damaged vinyl floors. Mm-hmm. And the property values still stay up because they have a heating system under the floors. So any type of a remodel, an electric system is going to be a lot easier to put in than the hydronic system. Any type of new construction, you really need to get your professionals involved to see what is going to be the most beneficial thing short-term and long-term. Because if the plan is new construction being off the grid and you have enough capacity to generate your electricity and use an electric system as a supplement for something else, then the electric system is a way to go, because you can zone it and basically shut down the other parts of your house that you don't use, and vice versa.
Okay.
And bathrooms, obviously. I mean, heck, Breaking Bad had an episode there where there was a line that said, my contractor convinced me to put these heated floors in. Best decision I made in the entire remodel. Not an exact quote. And heck, they were in Albuquerque, Mexico. They were in a warm climate.
Well, so let me ask this, because I've never really dealt with a heated floor. So obviously my floor is going to be warm when I step on it. But is it doing anything to help heat the rest of the house? Is that heat radiating up into the air? I don't know enough about science that it should be. So is it helping heat my house I'm going to use my heat pump or my gas heater less?
So I'll speak to what I have for myself specifically. My wife loves the house to be warm. And it's not that she loves the house to be warm, she loves to be warm.
Mm-hmm.
Before we had heated floors, she would keep the house at about 75, 78, depending on how cold it is outside, and if she just wanted to turn it up a couple of degrees because she was cold from being outside.
Mm-hmm.
Since we got our heated floors, we keep the floors at about, our wood floors, at about 73, 74 degrees. My furnace is kept at 68. And in some cases, 64. So at night, we set it back to 64. During the day, it's 68. It only kicks on when the floors are not enough to generate enough heat, like in Chicago when we had the polar vortex this last season. But because of the reduction in how much heat we're using for gas, so much less gas heat, yes, my electric bill did go up. Mm-hmm. But we're keeping the floors in the rooms that we're using at those temperatures and keeping the floors in the rooms that we're not using at about 68. And the end result is my overall heating expenses with the heated floors were 40% less than my expenses when I would just use the gas heat. And we're a whole heck of a lot more comfortable.
Okay. And you're running
Well,
well, and I'm assuming like the room, if the floor is set to be like 72, 73, then the room is 72, 73 degrees.
the room is 72, 73 degrees at the floor temperature.
Okay.
And closer to 68 at the thermostat level.
Interesting.
Keep in mind, if you're only using your furnace to heat your gas furnace to heat your room,
Mm-hmm.
your room is 79, 80, 85 at the ceiling, 75, 74 at the thermostat, and 68 at the floor. When was the last time you were walking on the ceiling?
Yeah.
I don't need my ceilings to be 78. I don't need my ceilings to be 80. But that's what it ends up being when you're using only forced air.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting way to go about it. So now you're saving money. You're running less. It's more comfortable temperature from the floor to the middle of the room where you're actually using the space.
Well, actually, the what we found, and I'm going to use a ski analogy. And I don't know if have you been skiing recently?
No.
Okay. A little ski analogy. You can have the best jacket, you can have the best snow pants, and you can have a really bad set of boots.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to be cold every day of the week. You have a really good set of boots, you can be out there in shorts and a t-shirt, and you're still warm. But I guess that kind of comes from living in the cold. You realize, keep your feet warm, the rest of you tends to stay warm, or at least feel warm.
Yes.
The other thing to consider is the fact that because we're running the furnace a lot less, I don't think there was a single day where the humidity in my house, even though the outside ambient humidity was in the single digits, that inside my house it dropped below 35, 40%.
And you're not running a humidifier or anything? You don't have a whole house humidification system or anything?
I do have a whole house humidification system, but it doesn't run nearly as much, and it doesn't have to run when the furnace is running, because we went with a steam humidifier. So what it does is it basically monitors the humidity on a standalone, and it just turns on the fan to circulate the air, dumps some humidity into the air, turns off.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not drying out the air at the same time that I'm trying to heat it, because I don't need to heat it.
Yeah.
That helped allergies quite a bit. You know, there's been times when it got so dry in a previous house that my nose would literally bleed and my lips would crack. Another thing that I got from somebody on the Radiant Heat Task Force, general rule of thumb, when lips chap, floors gap.
Oh,
yeah.
That's punny. That's real punny.
Both punny and funny, but at the same time, it's true, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, yeah, that's why it's funny. It's funny because it's true.
So, never have we been as comfortable as we are since we did our wood floors with the radiant heat. And my wife won't let me move into another house without me redoing the floors first. That's her. I mean,
yeah,
I can drop her phone number. You can call her. She'll attest to that.
Well, I don't ever want to move without getting a remodel done first, because it's just miserable to live through. So it just makes sense to me.
That is true too.
Oh man. All right. I mean, I like it. I think I need to find a way to sell people that are really hot heated floors. I'm convinced. I'm not going to lie.
Well, they don't have to be hot, but if they like to open their windows quite a bit and they like to be comfortable, flip side of that,
mm-hmm.
What about the people that have very poor circulation and excess disposable income, and like to have warm toes but still still run their air conditioner because they don't like slippers? 72, 74 at the floor is not that much energy to put it into it.
Mm-hmm.
To keep the floor that temperature year-round, and it's still cold enough to justify running the air conditioner, or be able to open up the windows and enjoy the outside air, but keep your feet warm enough to be comfortable.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, so most everything in the Phoenix area is slab. So once I get if I put something directly over the slab, that 4-6 inches of slab is eventually going to heat up and retain that heat because it's stone. So will the system run less now because I've already gotten it to a basic temperature that it maintains?
So electric, and this is a big one. Every properly spec'd electric floor heating system must use a floor sensing thermostat that has a sensor wire that's installed at the floor level.
Mm-hmm.
What that's going to do is that's going to allow you to set the actual floor temperature, not the room temperature, but the actual floor temperature. That's going to limit the temperature swings of your floor, but what it's also going to do is it's going to realistically realize, hey, the floors are 72. I don't need to run the system. And it's going to allow that to dip down as much as it needs to, typically about 2-degree variance on that. It allows it to dip down before it turns the system on, because it doesn't need to turn it on in anticipation of getting cold again, like most radiant systems that are designed to operate by air temperature. In reality, what it's going to do with that floor sensor, that thermostat is going to learn, and let's use like a bathroom that's on a slab, like you said, but towards the outside of the house. But let's move it from where you're at to let's say Chicago.
Okay.
And in the winter, let's say that slab takes an hour and a half to warm up and get the temperature for that cold bathroom floor. In the summer, it only takes 20 minutes because it's not nearly as cold. Well, a properly spec'd thermostat for the job, and this is something that you should communicate with the manufacturer of the heating system, will learn those patterns as it goes along, and in the summer heat up longer. In the summer heat up shorter than it would during the long times in the winter. And the way that the thermostats, like all the thermostats that we use that are programmable, they say, what temperature do you want the floor to be at what time? And they'll turn on, over the course of a week, they'll learn how soon or how early they need to turn on to get the floor there at that time. Now, something very important with wood floors, no more than a 5-degree variance over a course of a 24-hour period of time. So use a programmable thermostat to go from like a 68 to 72 to 78 over a course of 3 days, or if your floor is at 62, 62, 67, so on. Do that over a course of a week rather than overnight, because that's part of the guideline.
Okay.
There are restrictions on how much heat you can put out. So certain systems will generate more heat than you want them to. Other systems will have wires that are spaced a lot wider than what's recommended, or narrower than it's possible to nail through. So all of those factors need to be considered when doing that. And same goes with adhesives. I mean, some systems, if you don't pair just the right system, are you gluing your floor down to the subfloor, or are you gluing your floor down to the heating system, which is held to the subfloor with what? Question mark.
Well, hopefully something. Hopefully it's held down with something.
We've seen some systems out there that use a peel and stick adhesive, and they're meant to be peel and sticking on mortar, and then all of a sudden there's a wood floor on top of it. Tile doesn't move. Wood likes to shimmy.
Yes. All right. I think plenty informative. Definitely something to look into to be able to generate another income stream besides, if you can sell another product and it's going to work for people and keep them happy and be reliable, all the more reason to do it. It's always good to have options and be able to offer people another product, solve another problem for them, because look, we're not flooring installers, folks. We are problem solvers. And the sooner you learn that, the sooner you will run a better business, because you're going to be solving people's problems instead of just telling them you can only install a floor. What do you got for me? How can people reach out to you, contact you if they are interested, want to learn more? Obviously, you're based in Chicago, so anybody that's in Chicago, man, go on down to the offices and get some education or something. Can they do anything like that?
We do have educational pieces that are going on. With COVID, it's a little bit difficult at this point in time. However, specifically for I'm going to have people go to the Warm Step website first and foremost. So go to warmstep.com. That's WARMSTEP.com.
Okay.
To start off with seeing our Warm Step systems. From there, you can actually get a link to see the rest of our floor heating systems as well as other products as well. But the main thing is the phone number that's on there, and I'll leave my phone number for people. It's 847-393-4815. That's actually my direct desk phone number. If you're listening to this show, you don't need to bypass. You don't need to go to a switchboard. Leave me a message. I'll pick up. I'll call you back. If I'm by my desk, I'll answer right away. And I'm here to answer questions for you right away with anything that I know. We constantly have some sort of a training video going on. We constantly have some sort of a webinar going on. We don't advertise them too much because we've actually run into situations where we've run out of people or spaces for these webinars.
Okay.
We've had when we start having trouble getting people to join us, then we'll start getting a lot of advertisement out there. but for now, if you really want to learn something, which if you're listening to this podcast, you do. Reach out to us. We'll get you registered for some of the ones that we have that are paid, some at no cost, and other ones that we put on for free. We'll give you a schedule and let you know, hey, invite yourself, invite your friends, invite your competitors, because there's nobody better to validate that what you're doing is right is when your competitor's doing it too. Now, whichever one of you gets the job, that's a different story. That's where you keep yourself different and you stick yourself to a higher level of client. But if you're the only one doing something anywhere, you're unique. If you're somebody that's doing something and there's other people around you, not necessarily too close. I mean, you might not want your client to be your competitor within 80 miles of you, 50 miles of you. But if you got a buddy that's 100 miles away, we do it here, they do it over there. Kind of don't step on each other's toes, but let everybody know that there is something out there that allows you to really grow and really add something to the business.
Definitely.
And as you said, that little utopia world where everybody shares something. The couple of things that I can say is that hickory, one very good piece of beautiful wood flooring that we know, tends to give everybody problem with environment. It just shimmies way too fast and adjusts way too quickly. So avoid hickory with heated floors. I can tell you that for a fact right away.
Good to know. Do you guys have do you have like territory reps or anything like that? Can I get a job start if I move into this and I need some help? Do you guys have like people in districts that'll come out and hang out with us?
So right now everybody's back in the office, but yes, we do have a number of distributors that we're working with. Gail up in Wisconsin, Intermountain, and pretty much Intermountain Wood Products in a lot of their territory. So they're going to be able to help out and show you everything that you need to know there, as well as additional ones being added all the time.
Okay.
For the stores, if you need to get a job start going, give us a call directly. If we've got a distributor in your area, we're going to hook them up with you, and they'll take care of you. If we don't, we will service you directly, and we'll get the product right out for you and help you with the right choice for the right system for the right project. And it doesn't have to be just the products that are for wood floors. It's any type of floor heating request can be handled. And we will help out anybody for any type of floor heating request that's needed for that. Once we work with you, you'll realize just how easy and how much you can add to the bottom line. The one thing I will say that we've experienced with our retail partners or retail stores that have used systems that they've bought from us. First contact, project takes a little bit slow, a little bit longer to get started. Project goes in, gets done, customer's so happy. there's 3 more projects within a month that are being spec'd out as well. The reason being is you're in that space anyway. You're doing the flooring there already. So if you can take a project that retails, $15 a square by the time you're done, and you're taking home $3.5, $4 for that, and make that project retail $28 a square by adding a heating system to that, and out of that you're taking home $9, and you're still in that space anyway. Your revenue numbers go up, your profit numbers go up, your amount on job site doesn't change much compared to anything else. Where is the issue with offering a product that gives you those benefits without actually having any other drawback? And you know that you've got a partner in a company that will work with you to give you a successful installation, not just to sell you a product that, hey, it works, that's what it is, this is available everywhere. No, you need a company that, for this kind of a project, that really focuses on doing what's in your benefit, and that's having a successful installation. There's enough stigma around heated floors as it is that if it's not done right, somebody will never want to do that project again. However, once it's done correctly and it's done effectively, there's no better add-on to any type of a project because of how much revenue it can really generate. Too much additional work. And the fact that the amount of client satisfaction with that afterwards is basically what our realtors tell us. You go into a bathroom that's got a heated floor in it, people don't care that you spent $1,000 on your faucet. You've got a heated floor.
Yeah. There's a big value add to it, and if you can find somebody that's going to stand behind their work or their manufacturing and your install, because if you do it right, then you've got a good partner, and that's what you need. Is you need to find partners in your business, and you will be in a lot better spot than most people because they're just looking to be able to offer a product, get it in, make some money. But if that person's not standing behind it at the end of the day, then you're not in a good position. So I like it. I like it a lot. I'm going to have to look more into it and figure out a way how to incorporate that into my business model down here. Maybe I need to move up north again. My wife would like that. I wouldn't, but my wife would.
You don't have to spend the entire year down there.
No, I really do. I really, really do. And I need to stop going home for Christmas, but that's like her family's biggest holiday. So I just have to go with the most miserable time of year. I'd love to change it if I could. Oh, well. Awesome. No, I thank you for your time. I thank you for the insights, the info, everything. It's excellent. And, I'm sure we will have to talk again as things develop and change and see what we can come up with and how we can continue to add more value to the listeners' businesses.
I would love to participate, and thank you for your time. Thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure and an honor. And I definitely look forward to talking to some of the listeners that want to learn more and look forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sergey. I appreciate it.
And thank you. You have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That's all the time we have for this week. To keep the conversation going, head on over to the Floor Academy Facebook group. Be sure to subscribe so you can hear each and every episode. We can be found on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and most major podcast directories. Don't forget to leave a review and let us know what you think about the show. If you would like to be a guest, have questions or feedback, you can email us at flooracademypodcast@gmail.com. You can help support the show by becoming a patron over at www.patreon.com/flooracademy. Remember to learn while you earn.